evening. This is your host standing by our nation's heart. We are launching Patriot Nation News, your trusted source for daily updates. Join us every weekday, 9 p.m. Eastern, only on PNN News.
Let's kick this day off right, Wolf Nation. It's time to wake up, show up. First you pray up, then you coffee up. Grab your Wolf Nation coffee and tune into the Cornbread Man Morning Show at 6 a.m. EST. Don't you dare miss it.
You're not going to want to miss what we're cooking up this month. Make sure you tune in every single Saturday morning, live right here from Wolf Nation Studio. Keep your eyes peeled for the Cornbread Man and Biscuit Boy. They're bringing the heat every week.
Wake up, everybody. It's showtime. Watch the Cornbread Man Morning Show at 6 a.m. EST. Get up, pray up, coffee up with Wolf Nation Coffee. The best brew to start your day right. All right, good morning on this Monday, May the 11th. We're now 6:04 Eastern Standard Time. We hope that you had a wonderful weekend celebrating Mother's Day. It may have been hard for some. I understand it was hard for my family in many ways, but we still did that. We had a nice breakfast at church for the ladies. And, a lot of people obviously were going and doing things with their mom. And we got to see a lot of that. It was difficult on my sons and grandkids as we thought about this. Difficult on me. But we made through, and here we are. And we're going to kick this second day of the week off and get into work and get some things knocked out this week. Looking forward to getting back on the trail, as they say. Got things to do and people to see and things to do, as they always said. But I hope it was a beautiful weekend, beautiful weather. Heated up a little bit. Going to be warmer, I believe, this week. Let's get our verse in quickly. That's an important thing to do. Read our verse of the day. Love the images too. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Amen. That's a great picture there. That's the way it ought to be. I remember many times gathering the family together and the kids, and then later grandkids, and we would have evening times of reading and devotion and things like that. And those are strong things that build into children and families this habit of starting your day with the Word, and even ending it, however you do. But finding time each day to focus on spiritual matters is absolutely imperative. So, yeah. Along with that, let me announce, over the weekend I did a show called First Light. It was Saturday morning. I've decided to make that a recorded show that it may find its way to a live at some point, be recorded, different links in the morning where we discuss scripture. And it's kind of a daily devotional, but it's called First Light, meaning to be early. Today's is recorded. It's about 10 minutes long, and we'll get that scooted out there soon. But look for that as many days as we can. First Light, especially through the week, and who knows, maybe even on the weekends as well. But gives you an opportunity to discuss or to listen. Maybe not discuss since it is recorded. But they're not meant to be real long. But maybe it'll be something that'll be beneficial to you. I know that the Word will be, whether anything I say is or not. The Word will be. Well, over the weekend, the president said the latest proposal was a no-go. Did not like it. In fact, that was his words. I did not like it. It basically, where this is going, they're not going to agree to anything that has any substantial movement on the uranium, the Strait, the ability to make nuclear weapons, all that stuff. In fact, there's evidence that Russia's supplying Iran, and and they're still making things. I don't know. The intel comes from different sources, and who knows what they're really being able to do. But the fact is that things are heating up in the Strait. Those ships are still not moving. They may actually start up those escorts again. There has been a little bit of drone activity and missile over some Middle Eastern countries from Iran, it is believed. So we'll see. There's not really an update. The update is there is no update. And so we'll see where that goes as the global energy crisis, not only energy, but other things,
in financial markets, goods and services, costs go up on different things, escalate. So let's pray for this to get settled quickly, just for the sake of humanity. That it's hard enough in this life as it is. Pray it gets better. Um, also, over the weekend there was the tragedy of someone hit by a plane on the runway. A lot of investigative things that go on there. Don't know if the person was. Well, first, they were trespassing. Absolutely, they climbed a fence. They said and was walking across. I mean, how do you not see that jet coming along? Was it suicide or homicide by jet, or however you want to look at that? Suicide. I guess it wouldn't be homicide since somebody else died. Horrible death. People inside were screaming and praying, and kids crying as that they were in full mode, and person goes in the engine, explodes the engine. I mean, it sounded like a bomb going off to the people inside. You can only imagine what some of them on the window aisle seen on that side of the plane to that engine. So obviously the person was instantaneously killed and damage to the jet and set back down. I've seen that video, and you can see the infrared of the energy signature, whatever, the person coming across the runway and the plane striking them. Crazy. No, but again, there's a lot we don't know and may never know. People are quick to rush to judgment, and it could have been many things. I mean, it could be anything from someone trying to do crazy things and just didn't, for whatever reason, misjudged, didn't notice it come. I don't know. You just never know. Or we're trying to be hit by the plane. Could have been a medical. Things like that happen. People do amazing things when they're having a medical issue of some kind of mental issue. Drugs even, they would have never done that in their right mind. And maybe we can say that nobody would do that, unless if they weren't in the right mind, or nobody would do it. So I don't know. But it was a tragedy nonetheless. And thankfully that none of the 231 or so souls, and it's interesting how they said that. They don't say the census. We had 231 people. They said souls on board, like that. But anyway, prayers for those people. Traumatizing. Can you imagine? It'd be hard to fly the next time you do it, but if that was how you needed to get around, but it's something you never forget. And to the family of the person, whoever they are. I don't think they've released a name yet. If they have, I haven't seen it. To the family, prayers for them. What a horrible, horrible thing. And let me say, it used to be some things were a little bit kept out of the public knowledge, unless you really dug, or months later, years later, you hear a little bit more. We've kind of gotten away from that. And there were some parts of the release of that really didn't need to be shared. And I was thinking more so, I mean, one, it's graphic. Some people love that kind of stuff. They just got to know. There's some things I don't got to know. But I'm thinking more for the family of the person. I mean, when we know how bad it is. We don't have to expand on that. We don't have to say, and I'm not even going to repeat what they said. I mean, if you heard it, you heard it. Some people say, I don't bother me a bit. That's fine. And that's not to suggest that nobody has a right to hear it or whatever, but I think there's a little decorum that should be followed with something like that. This is being announced, within a very quick amount of time of this event happening. And it was pretty graphic. And reporting has gotten more crass, lazy and crass. And I know some people inside the plane were probably reporting things out, but then major networks were picking that up and sharing some of that info. I just come from a different time, I guess, and there was a time where, do we really have to say what all? It's like driving down the road and you see a body on the side of the road and the sheets over it or the blanket. Dead is dead. We don't really have to get graphic about what kind of condition the body's in. And I'll give you an example of why I say that. When I was about 7, I seen someone who obviously was dead on the side of the road from a workplace. I'll never forget it. The images have stuck there this whole time. And it was a safety issue, and I didn't know all what happened. I didn't know anything that happened. Just heard it was an accident. They told later the general things of what happened. And so in training exercises, training classes and stuff, I would make mention of that, of how powerful that was to me as a child to see what I saw. Without being graphic, I mentioned, just the scene, the sheet there over the person. And I'd done this for a long time. And one day a guy held up his hand and he said, "David, if you don't mind, can I finish the story?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, I actually know, more." And he said, I would, that was my uncle. I was like, "Whoa," I feel bad now. He goes, No. I think it's a good thing what you're saying. You did fine." And then he didn't get graphic or anything. What he shared was the major details, the major points of what happened, and what kind of, how that affected his family that at that moment, and even years later, and had instilled in him a sense of being safe is most important, and to work safe, make sure people around him are working safe. But in none of that did we ever get graphic. We knew what had happened when he described what actually happened that day. But you don't have to ask. I think, sometimes people just want to get, if you're that interested, go be a funeral director or something. Somebody that, gets bodies up, or something. But some people just got to have that. And I just think we ought, and if nothing else, we should shield that kind of information, because kids are, maybe you're riding down the road, you're listening to the news, and the kids are in there. That was a rough description of what they said once they entered the engine. And if you don't know how bad that would be, then you don't know anything about jet engines, and maybe study that. But anyway, I'm not saying that there should be some part of law or anything. I just think it was a code that we used to have, that we didn't share the most graphic things. When you talk to police officers, first responders, EMTs, firemen, fire personnel, they have PTSD, many of them, because of things that they have seen in scenes that they have came up on, especially those involving children. And it does damage. And so, and yes, there have been those within those who have shared things probably among themselves, images they should not have, and have gotten in trouble for it. And I agree with that. That's someone's family. And there's even been in our local area people found out that they were passing along pictures of their loved one around, and they filed suit, and they won, and they changed some rules. They made more concrete some rules in the area. I think there were already things on the book. They tightened them up even more, and some people, I think, lost their job because they were, someone's, in this particular case, I don't remember. I think it was someone's wife in a car accident, and it was a graphic picture, pictures. And yes, they have to take pictures for the file. They can't remove what's in their mind, but they were passing it to people that weren't on the scene. And, hey, look at this, I get it. Somebody that's in that business, I do understand you cope with that in a different way. But I just think, we have to think of those who don't deal with that. And that is their loved one. That's someone's, mother, wife, sister, whatever, daughter. And that would be heartbreaking to know that was shared. It's like being in a courtroom. Sometimes they have to cover video, audio, pictures, and those are times that families step out in the hall. They don't want to see that. And they know there's a necessity in the court case to have that shown. It don't make it any easier. So anyway, just a little on that. Just something I noted. I thought, man, I have never heard reporting like that. To be honest with you, I'm not going to repeat it. If you heard it, you know what I'm talking about. I've never heard that from network, major news sources, that they were saying that, because when I first heard about it, I think I heard about it on the radio. I don't think I read it. I think I heard it. So I was hearing the reporter talk about it. what they were reporting, what others had reported seeing. I was like, I can't believe they said that. I mean, it just used to be a time when people didn't do that, um, and later, I mean, as people go back and research and study, you can go find that information. It's not like it's not available, but I'm just saying in that moment, family's not even been notified, don't even know who the person is, but they're telling this about them, and then later, they might hear that and then imagine that they're thinking, oh my gosh, and then if you get that phone call later, how tragic that would be. Pray for them anyway. That's heartbreaking. So that was over the weekend. I did watch the race over the weekend, and boring. SVG for the win, road course, of course. It was probably more exciting for the after brush up or build up or whatever, dust up, I guess a better word, phrase of Bubba Wallace thinking Christopher Bell about something happened on the track. No fists were thrown. I'm not a fan of road courses. The Braves took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. They finally lost a series before that. It was a big series against the Dodgers. Took 2 out of 3. They lost the first one, won the last 2 7-2, and just looked great. They'll take the day off today. The Bravos will be back in action tomorrow night against the Cubbies. Be a big series. Cubbies are playing well too. Those will be well-attended games. Cubbies have a lot of fans. Chicago Cubs that'll come out. The Braves are hot. Those will be must-see TV and tickets in-house for those games if you're a baseball fan. So that was neat. We didn't do a Wolf Nation show or sports show yesterday. We will be back in tonight with our racing hour. The Chaser, he's off today, so we'll do it on that Monday. So we'll do we'll talk all things racing. We'll talk a little bit of sports, and then later that night, news and our Wolf Nation Sports. We'll dive in a little deeper to scores and stuff and what's going on. So I'll be looking for that and news items. We'll bring up several news items. Sorry, I got some itching me. Probably a wayward hair. So driving me crazy. But we appreciate all of you joining this morning. And this week, we are, like I say, revamped the schedule just a little bit. We're still getting used to that, and I'm still working through some things. There's some shows that's been offline for a couple of weeks now due to the passing of my wife. And the intent was to bring these back up slowly so that I don't, overload myself, knowing that I just need sometimes just time to be away. And I did that yesterday. I really did. I intended on being on more, but I found that I just needed that time. So I just relaxed, just took a break, and I really just relaxed all day and spent time with family. And I'm glad I did. I missed being on, but sometimes you need that. But this week we'll try to add back in a couple of shows. The music show, I missed that. And we need to get our history show in. Just love that. There's some others we want to do. This week we will start doing our lives to and from Substack. Went to run a test last Friday. It didn't happen. That was another night that I sort of took off. Again, there's a lot going on, a lot to get accomplished, and needs that time to be with family. And I still had family in town. They've went back now, and we will begin to. I want to run a one-show test to make sure I've got everything right. You'll also see some other things announced as well. I wanted to get some of that ready over the weekend. That just didn't happen, so it'll happen this week. Maybe not today, but starting tomorrow, as we get some of the things updated. And we'll be announcing that. So some of you may be not interested, but some of you may. And that will also, we're getting ready to add some things. We got an announcement about Apple. They've made a change that's going to be better for us. We're going to update our radio station and revamp that. I might even change the name to Wolf Nation Radio. So we'll see. We will see about that. And hopefully we'll have a great week. I don't know if there's any rain coming in. And it was another thing that hit us last week. We had major storms that come in, just wiped out our Wednesday night. It was nuts. I mean, it wiped out the internet. We had lines, trees crashing down, limbs anyway. Took out the power lines. We had lost power a little bit. Then they're doing some work in the area the next morning. It didn't impact us that morning late. And by the time we got home, we were okay. They were dynamiting. some rock, putting in some sewers, and they dynamited enough. They took out some power in the area, which knocked out internet again. And that's not far from me, just not even a mile down the road, maybe a quarter, maybe the half mile. I don't know if it's a full half mile. And they were dynamiting in this rock. They just shut the power down. Somebody got a little heavy with the dynamite. I was talking to the people at the funeral home, or excuse me, the graveyard cemetery, and they were talking about when they go down and dig, because it's a family business. They do all their own things. They don't. It's even her husband that did the digging. There's times they hit rock and they have to dynamite, because they're not deep enough, and by law you have to be so deep. And so rolling hills, and some of them dar hills have some rock that is pretty close to the surface. It's like my church up on the mountain, and listen to those folks, and it's a big old mountain, and just in most places you can get down pretty good, and it's no problem for burying your water lines and doing your gardening and all that, all those things. But then occasionally there'll be property up there where they're trying to dig for a foundation, and they're hitting solid, rock of different. They described to me about how that rock, what it is and what it's made up of, but they have to start dynamiting, and you'll feel that because it's vibrating that whole shelf when they do that. So you get a little rattle. It's like a little earthquake. That's what it feels like. But we did have one in the area. I didn't feel it. We had a little earthquake, and apparently it hit up there or somewhere in that region. And they talked about it at church last week. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was last week. And they had a little shaker. I didn't feel that, but they just pretty good shake. So you may live in an area where we get a lot of that. We don't get a lot of that here, but when we do, it makes news. People, I guess in California, you just get used to the shape. But here, when it happens, it's like, whoa, it's a big news event. It's talked about a lot because we don't see that. And when we do, it's fairly minor, but you be a real short rattle that just reverberates across the region. And it's usually centered somewhere way away from and deep, pretty deep. So it's not like it's doing anything major. The intensity is very small, but nobody wants to be shook out of their house. When I was a kid, we had our house here in North Georgia. We moved into a little town. My dad, Dad was always dreaming and was trying to, I guess, build up a real estate portfolio. We just ended up coming home after a while. We moved over to Tennessee for, I don't know if it was a full year. And he had, I don't know if he rented to buy or whatever. It was a cute little house. It wasn't new, but it was a cute little house. It was just my dad, my mom, and me. Then it was no sisters. I was just little. I believe I was probably 5 years old. And this house had never had a bathroom inside. They had an outhouse, and they were building that when we moved. It was about, I don't know, it was being finished up, so we couldn't use it the first week or two. So we go to the outhouse. It was the only time in my life I ever used an outhouse. And here I am at 5 years old, scared me to death. I mean, I've used porta potties. That's scary enough. But it wasn't just that it was an outhouse. I was afraid of snakes and stuff. It's just the unknown. That's especially you go out at dark, carry a light with you. It was situated fairly close to railroad tracks. The whole house was. And when the trains would come through, it would shake everything in the house. It was a scary moment for me. I'm probably still traumatized. I remember waking up. I mean, you would just feel it was like a slow build. It was like as it got closer, and then it would get it to a crescendo, a shake, and then it would go away. But there was one time I was out in the outhouse. Here I am, like 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, in the outhouse. And I hear it, hear it, and feel it coming. And I just held on. I'm a little dude, and I was always afraid of falling in, as they say. And this thing is vibrating. I mean, just crazy. It was like some kind of sci-fi movie or something for me as a 5-year-old. I don't remember now, but I probably thought it was the end of the world. Here comes the train. The whole outhouse is shaking. Nobody wants to go out like that. And I was so glad when they finished that bathroom. It was right after that. I was like, thank the Lord. Like I don't have to go out to that scary building anymore. Oh, man. Oh, we are blessed in America. I think, a lot of the world has that kind of ability, but there's a lot of the world that does not have indoor plumbing and bathrooms. I'm thankful for them. People can brag all they want about, well, I remember a time when I was, that's great, but I would rather not. Oh, I don't ever, I couldn't imagine if it was an earthquake too, but what the train could have deep. Yeah, I thought it was a horrible idea to have that. I remember telling my mom or my dad once, like, why is it so close to the railroad tracks? I mean, the property was not that big, the yard, but it was sufficient. Like going back to the word they used this morning, the first lot. But I guess they were just trying to get it as far away from the house as possible, but stay off of that length that's railroad property on each side of the tracks. To me, looking back, I'm a 5-year-old. It probably was further away than I remember. But to me, it felt like it was, the train's coming right down on your head. And in my mind right now, I'm thinking it's like, 20 feet away. It probably was more than that. But it wasn't a huge length, I'm telling you. I went back and looked at that place. There used to be a little store there, and a little restaurant. And I could ride my bike up to the restaurant. And I went back to look at that place. I hadn't been back since I was a kid. And I took my wife and her mom. I think somebody else was with us, maybe one of the grandchildren. And I went back to look at it. And I mean, it's out in the middle. There's nothing there. You go on up the highway and you run into little towns and stuff that are, quite populated. But in that little area, there's just nothing there. And I went back and, in my little 5-year-old brain, I mean, I was thinking this was a big area, not building wise, but just there was, big buildings, big houses. I went back and I went, well, those houses are tiny. And I remember there was the restaurant. I don't even know if I could determine where it was at. I don't know if it was still there, had been torn. I couldn't figure it out. But I did find the spot. I was worried at first I couldn't find the spot, but I found it. It's a little, I mean, it's not even a town. It's really an unincorporated area. It was a very small place, but when I go back, it's funny what your brain tells you as a little kid. And I went back and I went, oh, that's small. And I told him, I said, I can remember riding down, this area on my bike, and there was a neighbor kid, and they had a little girl. We would ride bikes together, and there was a store up the street you could actually run an account with, a little credit, but you had to drive down to that. And I think that store was still there. I don't know if it was still a store, but the building was there. So I had it right in my mind. I mean, I did remember it correctly because I said that was the house. The outhouse was long gone, but the railroad tracks were still there, and there was only 3 or 4 houses, if that, 3 to 4, in that little section of area. In that part, down there was some more, but right there. So there was the little dirt road. It was a little dirt road that went up to these. What had changed, and I don't remember it being there, was kind of a work building. I don't know what they did. I don't know if it was had anybody in it at the time, like a warehouse. I didn't remember that. Now it might have been where the restaurant sat, but to me, it was like a pretty good bike ride. It wasn't that far. My parents would have let me go far anyway. It was safe, Back in the day, usually they would say, go up and, well, Mom, like, right up there and get us a drink or something, like something like that, or a French fry or something. But sometimes she'd walk with me and I'd just ride along. It was that kind of community. It was that Mayberry kind of thing. Everybody looked out for everybody. But it's funny to go back and see that when you're grown and think, wow, this was a big thing. When you get there, it's a hole in the wall. You're like, what happened? I thought this was really big. But when you're little, those things become much bigger. Things are more giant, and they're not that big when you go back. So with kids, they tend to will go bigger and exaggerate a little bit. That's the way they see it. They're looking up. They're little. And to them, that is that way. So you have to take that into consideration when you're hearing a story from a kid, because they will imagine even things, that's much bigger and more there. But they are, and my memory was correct. And I had not been back. And at the time we went to do that, it's been several years. I was in my early 50s, I believe. So it's probably been about 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago that we did it. So you can think that it was nearly 50 years, nearly closing up on 50 years since I've been there. And what I remembered was I'd never been back. So that when you do start to remember things as a kid, those memories are strong. I mean, I was thinking, wow, I did have the lay of it, the way it laid out in my brain. Everything was the way I remembered it, but it was just bigger. And I thought that was pretty cool. It was just too bad. I wish it'd been cool if the little restaurant had been open. I could have went there, and the little store, which I don't think was open. So there was nothing to do. There was even no pull off unless you pulled in somebody's driveway. So it's like we rode through a couple of times. It's like, well, okay, that's it. And I felt like it was a lot further from where we lived, because we held on to our property and we moved back home. And I felt like it was really big, but it wasn't. It was not that far at all. To me, it was way off, like an hour away. It wasn't that far away. Anyway, back in the news, Israel says that the war is not over until the nuclear sites are dismantled and they get a hold of that uranium. So I really didn't doubt anything else from that. I'm not surprised at that. They know the Americans may pull away and not close the deal, so to speak, of what they intended to the end result here. So I suspect that they will would certainly try to finish that part of it anyway, or do more damage to those sites. Whatever people feel about it. I'm just saying what I feel like they will do. I felt like they would wanted more on that. What else is in the news? The Energy Secretary says that the president is open to a gas tax pause. Some of your Sunday shows, we get a lot of news if you're not able to watch them that come out on Monday. And some of this is from those Sunday shows. Meet the Press was this one. That he would support suspending the federal gas tax if it helps lower fuel prices for Americans. And they're going to have to do something now. It is approaching $4 a gallon in my area. So if it's there where I'm at, I know it's really way over $5 in some areas, and maybe even over $6, but that'd be big cities. But for us, we usually are way behind the national average. He goes on to quote, all measures that can be taken to lower the price of the pump and lower the prices for Americans, this administration is in support of. The national average is sitting at, on Sunday, was $4.52 per gallon, which hasn't moved, honestly. That has been pretty static. But there's about 18 cents per gallon in federal gas taxes and roughly 24 cents on diesel. Didn't know that. I thought those were the same. They are not. So a little bit of relief there, not much. I do know that my little car is my wife's car. I've been driving. We could fill that thing up for about $25. And I went ahead. I had some gas already in the car. Not a lot. And I filled up last Friday, I think it was. And it was a little over $35. So that tells you how much it's shifted, the rising cost. So I was like, okay, stop. Anytime. They believe the suspension of the gas tax will lower the national average to about $4.34 per gallon. Still a lot, but it would help. Even with the reduction, prices will remain well above the $2.98 per gallon average recorded 2 days before President Trump launched the military action against Iran. Economists and analysts have questions how much relief a temporary tax pause would provide, particularly for lower income Americans facing higher transportation and living costs due to rising fuel prices. I was thinking these changes, and I will say this. Now, I don't know if there's a direct correlation. Somebody locally may say you're wrong. But I will tell you, in the last 2 weeks, the police have been everywhere writing tickets. And I said, well, these higher gas prices are blowing up the budgets of these local sheriffs. Now, they would never admit to that. But I am telling you, my sister's, she's not used to seeing that much presence anyway from the town she's in. And she says, well, it always amazes me how much more you have. But she said, there's more than usual. I'm seeing much more than usual. She's an out-of-towner from Nevada. And she says, I'm seeing a lot more like that. We're not even going, a few blocks down the road. There's another one, people getting pulled over. I said, well, maybe they're trying to bump up that budget money a little bit because the gas. And I noticed it looked like they were not patrolling as much. It looked like they were staying stationary in high visibility areas in my town and sitting there and watching the traffic and then going out and getting tickets as they saw speeders. That's what it felt like to me for the last couple 3 weeks is what it looked like to me. They're not as, I could be wrong. That's my perception, but it is awful funny. I'm seeing more that are parked and watching and radaring than they are patrolling. They're not moving around as much. They're in their zones. They're in the areas they're supposed to be. They're trying to save fuel. I have no doubt about it. I could be wrong, but that's the perception I have. Wright warned last month that elevated fuel prices could continue for months even after the tensions ease. On Sunday, he declined to predict future oil or gasoline prices. He said energy costs could decline once shipping resumes through the Strait of Hormuz. Quote, I can't make any predictions about oil prices or gasoline prices. When we start to get free flow of traffic through the Strait, energy prices will come down. And as of right now, that's not happening. So we'll have to wait and see if it does, but it's not happening right now. Maybe that'll get better for us. Over the weekend as well, I saw this post by the president. He really blasted 2 Supreme Court justices, Gorsuch and Barrett, over their refusal. And he praised them in many ways, but he blasted them about the not siding on the tariff ruling and the damage that had done, saying that he had appointed both of them and that they had hurt our country so badly by siding against his administration's tariffs policies. Got the price thing in there, and I couldn't remember. So it was pretty rough, talk. He had quite a few things to say yesterday. He also showed the fight that's going to be, the image of that's going to be on in front of the White House. He showed a artist rendering of the ballroom. We talked about that, and there was a couple other things that he touched on that I made mention of. Let's see here. Putin says that U.S. blocked secret plutonium deal with Iran. On Saturday, he said that the United States, Israel, and Iran had agreed to transfer enriched nuclear material from Iran to Russia. But that the arrangement ultimately collapsed after Washington reversed its position and demanded the material be sent only to the United States. During a lengthy post-Victory Day, I saw him jogging up the steps for his Victory Day celebration. At the Kremlin, following those commemorations in Moscow, he described the early negotiations as a missed opportunity to reduce tensions in the Persian Gulf and revive confidence in the diplomacy surrounding Iran's nuclear program. Addressing questions about the current standoff between Iran and the United States, he revealed details of the recent talks on the plutonium. We didn't just propose it, we already did it once in 2015. And again, not that I trust anything that Putin says. I don't. But it's interesting to hear his side. And of course, he throws stuff in. He's a braggart. The president brags, Putin brags. They both brag. Powerful people do that. He says, Iran trusts us completely, and it has good reason to trust us because, firstly, we've never violated any agreement. So it's just pat yourself on the back there, Mr. Putin, while you are blasting and bombing children as well. So you want people to get mad at Trump and say He's done the same thing, but people give him a pass. He had initially this was sort of a secret. Everyone agreed. Representatives of the United States agreed. Iran agreed. Israel agreed. Putin told the press about the more recent negotiations. He said that the deal unraveled when the United States hardened its position and demanded that the uranium be transported only to the United States. It's funny we've never heard of anything about this, though. It's funny. It's funny that he's saying that we've not heard anything about it, even from Israel's side or even Iran. Where's Iran has not said this that I know of. He said the shift prompted Iran to change its own stance and refuse to move the material abroad. I believe that their stance was they weren't moving any of it. So I would say in this, he's a liar. We know he's a liar. And they have made comments even recently that this latest proposal, you're not getting it. We're not moving it. So I don't believe this for 1 minute. I think that's him trying to be the big, again entrench himself into the issue. He was a world power and brag on himself and try to make himself look good to the rest of the world against the United States. He's a liar. He may not be the father of it, but he is a liar. And Russian media, information, he is known to lie a lot about a lot of things and exaggerate things when he's doing these speeches and things. He loves to talk about himself, and it's like a lot of leaders. President Trump does it too, and many others. They like to talk about themselves and what they've done, and so you have to take, you got to filter all that. So it's interesting that he said that. That's like Zelensky. He was going to. What was he saying a couple of weeks ago? He was going to call in his safety team across the world about the strait, like he's the key holder. He's the key holder to the whole strait. Come to me. I'll assemble my team, and we will get the strait open. Shut up, dude. And by the way, the 3-day ceasefire, I think there's been some missiles fired in there. Well, the update is that, and I was just doing that, is that the 3-day ceasefire was violated, but they have went quiet on it. I was surprised to hear anything at all over the weekend, but they announced that 3-day ceasefire. But Ukraine says, again, can you believe Zelensky on that side either? I don't know. He lies too. That there was some drone and missile activity in certain areas, and it's saying that Russia violated the ceasefire. They did exchange 1,000 prisoners apiece. That was a part of this. It's quite a bit. Those families will be glad to get them home. I suspect if they're healthy, they're going to be put right back on the front line by both sides. And both sides are bad about this. I mean, Russia's been putting injured men back on the line. We know that Ukraine has been grabbing old men and young boys, fairly young, off the street, because they have a shortage, and Russia does too. I mean, they've lost so many; they're having a hard time too, without going into the major populated areas, and they don't want to do that because they don't want the country to know how bad it is. So that continues on. They're nowhere near us. That ceasefire was for the victory, and really they wanted that. I mean, for Russia's side, the really only thing they wanted is they just want, they scaled down the parade. They didn't want to get caught with their pants down, so to speak, while they're doing this, and drones come in and start, bombing people. So they were trying to get that. So that was an olive tree so he could do his thing. I have no doubt that once that 3 days is over, I guess today would be that day or tomorrow. I'm not sure. It may already be tomorrow over there. They will be bombing again, bombing and strafing and killing, and on both sides. So, I did hear that Russia has offered Iran the use of their fiber optic drones that are almost impossible to jam. They can go up to several miles and to be used against Americans. That right there is very dangerous talk in this. Can you imagine how they would be reacting if we had said that about certain things? We've resisted some things on the, we've offered things up to the Ukrainians and sold and given weapons and all that. But there would be a red line if we did certain things that would bring conflict. And that's the kind of thing that could go straight down there if you're, got out there and they were used that way. Some would say, well, we've used weapons. They've used our weapons, and they have, certainly. But there's certain things we've not allowed. We've not flown the F-15 patrol over there and landed and started doing bombing runs on Russian encampments and frontline positions or anything else. that would be an escalation that would come with a major response and could open us up to a major war, a world war. So there are just some things, and so it's a little alarming when you hear that. They're saying we could help you with that, we could do that. With that, that would mean technical people on the ground probably. Let's be honest, they probably have Russian soldiers over there doing it. Anyway, I just think, I always want to hear those things. Nobody wants that. If anybody does, there's something wrong with them to want that kind of war. Over the weekend as well, the president said he was going to strengthen the Buy American policy that he was still seeing in the government, in the federal world, that there was things being bought from overseas, and he wanted to address that. And in capital letters on Truth Social, I saw this as well. All federal agencies must buy American, no excuses. For decades, Washington politicians have sent your taxpayer dollars overseas and let foreign countries rip us off while our workers, factories, and supply chains were left behind. That betrayal is over. He said his administration is strengthening Made in America laws, ending waiver loopholes, and stopping the federal government from buying foreign products when great American products are available. And to the DC bureaucrats, no more, capital letters, handing out waivers like candy. No more rubber stamping exceptions for foreign products while American workers get shafted. He said the administration is putting American workers, American factories, and American supply chains first, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. He also referenced Executive Order 14392, which he said was signed to crack down on fake Made in America claims. The March order directs federal agencies and the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, to increase scrutiny of companies accused of falsely marketing products as American-made. That has been done a lot over the last few decades. The order also calls for additional review of federal contractors and suppliers selling products to the government under Made in American claims. Agencies may refer violations involving false labeling or procurement certifications to the Justice Department under the False Claims Act. I wholeheartedly support this. These jacklegs could have been taking, we know we've been ripped off as taxpayers. They would take these massive, charge massive costs for things, and it would be just like those jacklegs to get a cheaper part or whatever that wasn't made in America and make even a bigger profit. So I'm sure that's happened. I already signed Executive Order 14392 to crack down on these fake things, Made in American claims. We're enforcing it hard. No more games, no more fake labels, no more ripping off the American taxpayer. America first means buy American. Trump has repeatedly promoted domestic manufacturing and procurement reforms as part of his America First agenda. So, some people are going to hate the president no matter what he does. I would say that I support that we need to do more of that, and we have seen American jobs and factories and our money and everything go overseas. That should stay home as much as possible. Some things you can't get here. It's a fact. I work in industry and I know there's some things you can't get here. It's just not made. Now that may be because we were loose about things, and maybe that's, who knows why, but there are a lot of things that we are buying from China. I've heard this talk because in procurements and, during the tariff wars and stuff like that, there was concern about where do we get this part? We can't get it. And I think they started buying from China, moving it to other places, at least on paperwork, and selling it abroad because of the restrictions and stuff. And I've heard these conversations, but in a couple of cases, they were trying to figure out another way to do something because they couldn't get parts anymore. Because there was just some of these were electrical. They're just not made here in the States. And so, and then the process escalated so much. Things that were, we'll say, a few $1,000s became like 40,000, things like that. So it became, they started scrambling on that too. But they can't buy it here. It just doesn't happen. And we deal with it as industry like any, where they say it's on the boat. It's on the way. It's frustrating. You're ready. You've got business. You've got things you need to get done, and you're waiting. And another thing that frustrates, I've heard this many times, is that there's only a certain time you can call because of time difference. You got to catch them early in the day here to get, in some cases, in the afternoon there. And if you don't make that connection early, you're not making it at all. So you have to think about the time differences and stuff when you're calling companies in Germany, Italy, Austria, and many others. Because a lot of parts come from that area of the world. A lot of things in our industry do. The machines themselves were made there and shipped over that we bought. Millions of dollars worth of them. So that is a frustrating part. Okay, I do got to go. I got to be at work a little earlier today, so I'm going to start making my way out. Look for a first lot that'll be loaded up here soon. We'll be back this evening. Look for me in the Chaser, the in-house Marine, and we'll talk racing. We'll talk sports and whatever else. I don't know if we got a guest tonight. I'll have to look. I didn't see it in my schedule. It could have been I missed it, but we will see. But have a great day out there. God bless America. God bless you. Thanks for your thoughts and prayers. They do help. And every show is, again, dedicated to my wife, Lynn, who I call Lenny. And if you would like to see the daily posts that I do, I know some of you are not on Facebook. It's the only place I put it. If you look under my name, it has the logo for the podcast. You'll see a daily that I do. And a lot of people seem to like them. Even if you didn't know her, they say they're fun stories, and they enjoy reading them. So anyway, just letting you know they're there. I'm not asking you to go pick up a Facebook account just to read it. But if you're on Facebook, you have access to it and want to follow it. There's a daily that I do with funny stories throughout our whole history. Sometimes I make myself look really ridiculous because that's part of the story. I do some dumb things sometimes, or I did. Have a great day. God bless. Salute. We appreciate you.